Hey all, so I've got another off-season war for you here, and I'm just going to warn you up front. This one is explicitly me testing the limits of some of these champions, because we know Defiance attackers are going to be great. We know that it's possible to play around this global with non-Defiance attackers, but before I get into really needing to assign full paths, and because there are two wars left, that's generally when I start assigning things in off season. Before I get into that, I kind of need to figure out where the limits are on these characters, and that means I'm taking some matchups that I know are sketchy in this war, and that I know I would probably send other characters to. Now, this Mangog is not one of those. This is super safe with Cap. He's got that Petrify to keep things under control. When Mangog does proc the Regen, we're going to be controlling that as well, at least mitigating it, if not canceling it out entirely. We can't reverse it, but it honestly doesn't matter. You see here, he finally throws his first special one of the match, and he is already more than 40% down. Would have been really nice if that special 2 had crit, but that's okay. You're also seeing the Petrify Mastery at play here, because so much of the fight is Cap hitting him while he's stunned. He's gaining less power from our hits. Now, I was hoping he would throw a special one there. Obviously he doesn't, so we're just going to block this special 2, but it is blockable here, and Cap loses less than 5%, makes up a little bit with Adrenaline. Really, really easy fight. Happy to send that all the time. So then we have this Bishop on Masochism over time, and this is the main reason I brought Punisher 2099. I've liked Punisher 99 for a long time. He's a really good champion, controls a lot of content for me, and I've kind of suspected that we've been underutilizing him in war, and that's part of what I wanted to test here. So note that we started at 90 battery. That's because he's both duped and we have Cap on the team, and so that means that we don't need to wait very long to go into overdrive and almost completely shut off what Bishop is giving us. Now, we would be completely shutting off Bishop if we were on another node, because that overdrive combined with the Petrify Mastery would be completely stopping combat power if we could stun him. But because this is Masochism over time, instead we're baiting heavies, mostly successfully, but that's okay, because even with all of that power that we could have prevented if we were able to stun him, he still doesn't get to his first bar of power before we take him down. And I didn't use the special 2 there, which is normally where Punisher's damage comes from, is that big armor break. We didn't even get there. That was all special 1s, plenty of damage. Love that matchup. Okay, so before we go into this next one, I just need to warn you, I literally forgot what node I was playing. I did this late at night. I did not duel or prep because it's off season, and I completely forgot I was playing strike counter, and so you're going to see some huge mistakes right away. So there's heavy number 1, and there's heavy number 2. And now he's going to start stacking Furies. For some reason, there's heavy number 3. Take a ton of damage because he already had 3 and 4 Furies during that, and for some reason I throw yet another heavy instead of the special 1. I finally stopped the Fury gain here by throwing my special. Again, I cannot explain that other than just my mind going completely blank as to the mechanics here. That said, we start getting this under control. We play strike counter the way we're supposed to, but you'll notice that this is not nearly as under control as the last fight that I took here with Cap. And a big part of that is that because we brought Punisher and Hawkeye instead of a skill and a cosmic, we're not controlling those armor-ups. And if we're not controlling those armor-ups, we have to parry a lot more to make sure that we have the kinetic potential to purify any shocks that would be incoming, and we also can't push him to his special 2 because it will be unblockable. Which means that we're having to play a lot more passively, conservatively, and the fight's taking longer. We're having to get backed up. We're giving him more masochism healing without really dealing with it. This is not ideal. And I could tell it was starting to throw me. Like, we are winning, but this is not the fight that I wanted. This is not nearly as good as the long shot that I took last war. That, I legitimately think Cap is one of the best possible options. There is no reason in season that you would not send a Doom here. I was testing Cap to check his limits, but it's not that hard to send a Doom to one of these three paths over on the left. And with how this fight is going, I think it's worth making sure you do. Anyway, so science has been done, experiments have been completed, and unfortunately I have to throw the heavy there because if I just ran in, he might parry me and that would kill me. But you'll notice he's up to 15 Furies now. Like, this is not going well. This is why something like Doom would be so much better. So we are getting him down. There we go. We do one more special one. The special one cannot trigger masochism. That's why those bleeds are getting through. So that part is nice. That's a decent amount of damage. But even with the small petrifies, we're taking a ton of masochism healing here. And then he throws this, and for some reason, I thought I was too far away, used a light, and because he had 15 heavies, and this isn't, in season where I would have given myself some more room with some kind of boost, yeah, 35k hit, you're done. Anyway, this is a doable fight with Cap, but like I said, this was me stretching the limits of what these Defiance characters could do, and while those first two fights were great, not sending this one if I can ever avoid it. So on to Section 2, and this is yet another fight that I would probably not send in season, but I wanted to see how bad it would be. And the thing with Joe is that block penetration very quickly becomes a problem. This Joe Fixit is also running recoil because it is the off season, and so the block penetration is going to be even worse, and I did not process just how bad it would be. So go ahead and throw that slow, and that does keep control of the Footloose, but those when him rolling sevens is just really, really bad for us, basically, because that's a lot of combat power, that's a lot of power, or sorry, that's a lot of attack, that's a lot of block penetration, and that's why that hurt so much. So even though we're pushing him to specials too here, like, we have done a lot of damage. That part of this is going very well, but those really long disorients are just a problem. Watch what happens when I try and parry here in a second, because that armor break is also significant. Well, I forgot about that part, actually. Yeah, so me parrying is not the issue. I just got impatient with him, which is not something you should do. I should have just waited that out until he finally came in, because waiting out the fight was good for me, right? The disorients would go away. I had the power I needed. He didn't have a special ready. I just should have slow played it. So now we're in a little bit of trouble, but I go ahead and intercept with this, and then I parry. I do a wake-up intercept to make sure I pause the bleed, and it's down. So that is a solo. But that's not worth it. That's just not worth sending. That's going to be Doom every time, and if he's banned, we'll have other options. But glad I tested it so that I, again, know what the limits are. So then we have this Domino, taking this with Punisher, doing some step backs here, and this confused me. Because what you'll notice here is crit failure in the middle of my combos when I didn't think I was doing anything. And what I realized is that, especially because unlike that bishop from earlier, she's already at a bar of power, Apparently, the fact that his attacks generate less damage, or sorry, the fact that his attacks generate less power on each hit when he's in overdrive, is an ability that is attached to each of those individual attacks. Which means if your ability accuracy is messed with in any way, like with Domino, she can actually gain full power from them, and every time she does, you take crit failure. I understand why that happens. I feel like it would be really nice if that particular part were coded in a way that that doesn't happen and it was just kind of like an on or off thing. Oh well, it is what it is. Better to learn that lesson in the off season. Even if this were in season, that would have been the last fight he took, and he did take it down, right? Even if that Domino had not been running recoil, we still would have been okay. So then we take this Mojo, and this is going to be very simple because basically we're just not going to parry because it's Hard Knock Life. He is running recoil, and it's Cap who's Defiance, so we're just gonna hit him until he dies. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give my outro over this fight because there's not much to talk about here. I did think that there were a number of factors about this Mystic Dispersion tactic that were going to make it not that far off from Unstoppable Armor. Like, Miss is just as dangerous as Unstoppable. The pool of defenders is much better. There are a number of things. But after testing all of these Defiance characters in the off-season, while I do think they're going to be hard fights, my suspicion is that this is definitely going to be a bit easier over these next 2 seasons. I'm going to have a lot of fun, but I do think that war deaths are going to drop, which is arguably a good thing. I mean, items will be tighter, there will be some strategy in how exactly you top up, but in general, when death counts go down, war does get a bit more stressful. It seems kind of paradoxical there, right? Like, you'd think that if you're dying more, that's more stressful, and it can be, but when deaths are lower, every single death matters. And so I'm a little bit worried about the psychological effects of that going forward. But we'll see how it feels. You know, season starts next week, possibly. I know some people are asking for a later start because of the input stuff not being fully resolved. We'll see where that goes, but I don't know. I think I'm cautiously optimistic, just north of neutral on these next couple seasons. I very much like the attacker tactic. Defiance is awesome. I have a lot of fun with it. We'll see how the actual wars feel. Hope y'all enjoyed this one, and until next time, thanks so much for watching, and take care.